Income Tax 2020, Practice Problem 1, Presentation 33, Schedule C Business, Business Use of the Home. Come in, relax with Income Tax 2020. Here we are in our Lacerte tax software. You don't need the Lacerte tax software in order to follow along. However, I do think they have a 30-day free trial. So if you can get access to a promo or a demo version of it or any other tax software, it could be a good tool to practice with. We're continuing on with our comprehensive practice problem 1, where in the first section we focused in on the income. Then in the second section we looked at the above the line deductions. Then we looked at the itemized deductions. Now we're focusing in on our Schedule C, jumping over to the Schedule C. We then said that we got our information for the Schedule C from the client, which would be in a format of an income statement typically. And now we're working on our adjustments to it. So we had our information starting being this income statement. Then we marked the accounts that we think might need adjustments based on just observing the income statement and possibly looking at the prior year to see what happened. Now we're going through and we're making adjusting entries to it as required. And this is a little bit more complicated of an income statement because we did have meals and entertainment we have to deal with. We had the auto expense using the mileage method, and now we're looking into the business use of the home. So we marked these off and we asked the client, we said, hey, how about the repairs and the utilities? They're saying those are going to be part of the business use of the home. So to ask that, we'll typically ask them, and we're going to say, hey, look, you got utilities on there. Do you have a separate office or do you use a business use of the home? And if you're using the business use of the home, are the total expenses that you gave me the total expenses that include both business and personal that I need to then break out to the business portion using our business office method, proportional method? Or did you just include what you would think the business portion is, right? So we're going to assume then that these items here are actually the total bills that were paid for repairs and maintenance on the home in general, and that the utilities were for the home in general entirely, and now we're going to be breaking them out between business and personal. And then we're going to assume that they gave us this information being the square footage of the home office and the square footage of the home itself. That's going to be the kind of ratio that we will use. Now, obviously, this information, this ratio, if we did the home office last year, probably didn't change unless they expanded the home office or reduced the home office or something like that. And so then all we would really need is to allocate the information out. Also, just note that when we look at these situations, the other big thing that could be there, if they rent the place where they live at, then that rent might be something that we would include here. If, like in this case, they have the home that they purchased, they own the home, then we also have to think, okay, those items that would have been on the Schedule A, including the interest, mortgage interest, and the property taxes, are also things that we should probably be allocating between the Schedule C and the Schedule A using the home office. So those are two other items that we're going to have to basically pick up then, most likely here. So let's think about that. If I go back on over, we're going to say, all right, well then, like this amount here on the repairs and maintenance and the utilities, I'm going to say that the telephone they're going to do something different with. So this one and this one are the ones we're working on. So I'm going to greenify those. Going to greenify them. And what I'll do is I'll remove them first. I'm going to remove them completely, just like we did with the auto, and then put them back on the books with the use of the home office calculation that we will do in the tax software. So I'm going to remove them first. I'm going to put the credits on top this time just to, because I think that's easier to do, even though that doesn't look quite right on the debits. You know, if you're used to debits and credits, it could bother some people, but it doesn't bother me. So I'm going to put the credits on top because I think it's easier. So we'll put that there, and then we're going to put that there, and then I'm gonna put the other side to another tax adjustment down below. So let's actually add it here. I'm going to add this here. I'm going to say insert, right click and insert, shifting down. This is going to be the tax ADJ for the home office. So I'm going to reverse those items that are currently in there, because that's the full amount for the whole home, and we need just the portion for the home office. So I'm going to take the negative sum of these two. So I'm going to take these down to 0. So this is going to go down to 0, and this is going to go down to 0. So I'm taking them out as whoop, I hit the wrong one. That's not the right one. This one's going to go down to 0. I'm going to remove those completely, and then I'm going to put them back on the books as basically a home office, and one group sum home office item. And then I'm going to have my tax adjustment down here, which is going to be the home office. I'm going to start with a 0 on this side, so it then adds up. So now I've zerofied these, and so this now sums up total. This sums up down to that break. This sums up down to the break. So now I'm going to remove those two items from my data input, so I should tie into this number thus far, and then we'll do the adjustments. I'm going to go back on over here. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to remove those from my data input in a nice systematic approach here. We're going to say that was the utilities. I'm going to just get rid of the utilities now because I'm going to do it in a different way. And then I'm going to go back up to the repairs and maintenance. That needs to go. Those two need to go. And then I'm going to go back up to the forms. Bottom line ties into the 58,533. That ties in over here, 58,533. Now I can just simply do the calculation for the home office calculation. So I'm going to go back on over. Now we could use like the simple method, the simplified method, but my square footage is over 500, which I think is the limit that you can take. So I don't think you'd give it as much of a benefit from the simplified method. So we're going to have to use the more complex method, which means we're going to be using form 8829. So form 8829, we're going to have to tack on to this thing. This is going to be a deduction for the home office. So I'm going to say that this is going to be going to the Schedule C, and this is going to be for the consulting. And then we're going to do our breakout between the square footage. So they said the square footage of the business, square footage, according to our notes over here that we asked the client, was 210. So 210 and then 14 here. So then we would expect that ratio, if we're using the square footage as the ratio, to be then the 210 for the office divided by the 1400 for the whole home, 15% then office usage. So then the total hours used, no daycare, nothing here, area home included for daycare, no daycare stuff is necessary. And then we have carryovers. I'm not going to deal with any carryovers at this point from the prior period. And then we have our indirect expenses. So let's just go on down our indirect expenses. Now here's where it gets kind of tricky because this mortgage interest, we already entered that into like the Schedule A. But the way the software works is I don't want to allocate, and this is another, you just got to know how whatever software you're using. So you'll see that we entered the mortgage interest over here on the Schedule A, and it's so we're already getting a benefit from it. It's that 16,000. We need to allocate that between the business use and the Schedule A. So you would think that maybe you take that 16,000 times 15% or something, but we want the software to do it. So for me to do that, I'm going to take the data input out of the direct input here and then put it into the other place, and the software will do the allocation. So we'll see how that plays out. But also note that the mortgage interest wasn't on my income statement here. If they included it on the income statement, I would remove it just like we did here and then put it back on using the method we're looking at. So that means I'm going to go back to the Schedule A and I'm going to remove that 16,000. And this is going to kind of mess things up, but we'll double check it in the tax worksheets after we're done with all this. So I'm going to go back to the interest. We're looking for the interest, and I'm going to take that 16,000 out there. So 16,000, I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to put it on the form 8829. So we're going to say it's just going to go 16,000 there. So then if I pull back on over, what'll happen is still will populate on the Schedule A here. So it's still there. So notice it took the difference, that 13,600. Actually, it made the Schedule A not something that it took us under the threshold here to be able to deduct it, but it did pull it over here. So now it took it down from the 16 to the 13,600. And then the other side is going to be here on the form 8829. So there's the 16, we're taking 2,400 of it. So we'll do the same thing. I got to do the same thing for the property taxes. So I'm going to do the same thing for the property taxes. So let's go to the Schedule A for the property taxes. And I'm going to say, all right, that is at the 6,500. And I'm going to do the same kind of breakout. So that's 6,500. I'm going to break out between the two. So that was the property taxes, right? So I'm going to go back on over, do the same thing here. I'm going to go to the Schedule C, and we're going to be picking up then the property taxes. So that's going to be under the taxes. I'm sorry, let's go to the Schedule A, and then let's go to the taxes, and we're going to be removing this 6.5 there, and then I'm going to add it to Form 8829. So that's going to be the real estate taxes, which was 6.5 there. And then check this out again. I'm going to go back on over, and we're going to say that now on the Schedule A, we still have the taxes being allocated, but now it's at the 5525, and the other side is going then to the Form 8829. So the 6.5, and we're taking basically our 15% of that on this side. So it's kind of breaking that out. That can be a little bit confusing to take a look at. But after you do it a few times, then you kind of get used to it. Now, you also might be thinking, well, what's the point of that? I could have deducted it on the Schedule A, and that would have pushed me over the cap at this point. Right now, I'm not over the cap. And if I put it over here on the Schedule C, it's rolling into the Schedule C, and I'm still getting the deduction over here. Why would that be beneficial? One reason it could quite possibly be beneficial here is because of the self-employment tax. So this bottom line here, the 55,158, is not simply going to be included in line 1 or included in the 1040 to calculate the federal income tax, but you also got to deal with this Social Security tax down here, which is going to be the Social Security and Medicare, the self-employment tax calculation. And if we can lower the Schedule C income, it's going to lower the Social Security and Medicare tax, which is typically going to be a good thing. Okay, so now we've got that. So if we go back on over, we've got that split, and that split can be kind of confusing because, again, you're going to see something that's on the Schedule A on the tax forms that possibly is not in the normal place that you would expect it to be in the data input, because we're going to put it over here on the Form 8829 and let the software then do the allocation between the two deductible locations, the Schedule C, which is coming from Form 8829, and then the portion that would then go to the Schedule A. So now we're going to go down and say that the other items that we had were, what were the other items? The repairs and maintenance, 2633. So I'm going to put that 2633 there. And then we have the utilities. Now these are pretty straightforward because they're probably not going to be deductible anywhere else. So there they are. And if you had rent if you were renting your home instead of having the mortgage interest and whatnot, then it would be more straightforward as well. So I'm going to say 444. So there we have. And then if we had any direct expenses, then those are going to be going basically down here. We're going to pull up the indirect expenses here. The repairs and maintenance is one you'd want to ask about. Did you repair the actual office, or is it like the home that was repaired, and so on? For more details, you could take a look at the section where we focused in on the home office. But I'm going to go back up to our forms then. So now we've got our forms for the home office, the 8829. So basically we're taking that 210, which is the square foot of the home office, and then the 1400 with the 1400, dividing that out, 210 divided by 1400, that ratio was 15% then. And so now we're doing our allocation for the 15% of basically all these items that are the indirect items. That being the 1600 and the 6. Let's do that again. 16000 plus the 6500. That gives us our 225. These are the ones that are going to be split between here and the Schedule A. And if I multiply that times the 0.15 ratio that we had, we've got the 3375. These items down below then are indirect as well, but these are items that are not going to be split, meaning they're only deductible here basically on the Schedule C, not on the Schedule A. We got the 2633 plus the 444. That's the 3077 times the 0.15. That's going to give us our 462. The 462 plus what we had up top, which was the 3375, is going to give us our 3837 or about. So that then is what is going to pull forward in essence to the Schedule C. So we're then going to go up to the Schedule C, and we'll scroll down. So now we've got this 3837. So now notice it's kind of down below here. And one reason it's down below is because that allows us to kind of see it and want to group some number. And also, if it was to take the net income below zero, then you would be limited. It would limit this amount. So we kind of need the subtotal up top to make sure that this thing doesn't take us down below zero. Because if it did, then you may have a limitation there. So there we have that. Now let's go ahead and just put that on our worksheet over here. So if we add our worksheet, so now I'm going to put this back on the books. We have the clean slate. I'm going to put it on the books as basically one line item this time, instead of repairs and utilities and whatnot as separate line items. So I'm going to go back on down here. I'm going to add another line item. I'm just going to insert and shift down. And so there we have it. And I'm just going to call this business use, let's say use of home, and 0 on this side. I'm going to copy the formula down on this side. And then I'm going to say this is equal to this number. And then you could just take this number from the tax return over here, or you might want to try to basically recalculate it. So what was it? It was the 16,000 from the mortgage interest, plus the 6.5 property taxes, plus the repairs and maintenance 2,633, plus the 444 for utilities. And I'm going to say brackets, I'm going to put an equal sign here. And then I'm going to take that and multiply it times the ratio of 0.15 for the business use. That's that 3837. And we'll bracket it here. And then the other side is going to be going to our tax line item. And so there we have that. And then if we record it, I'm going to say business use of the home is going to be now debited by that 3837. And then on this one, it already has something in it. So I'm going to double click on it, go to the end of it and say plus, and pick up that 3837 here. And so now we've got the difference between these two are these three items. And that adds up to a net difference of the 642. And then this is the total. This is stopping at our tax items, and I need to bring it down one more. So notice it's stopping one shy there of what we need it to be. So I'll resum this up. This equals the sum. I need it going down to here and not picking up the balance sheet. And so there we have that. And I'm going to copy that across. That's what we should have here as well. So I'm going to copy that over here. So there we got it. Now we got the 54696. And does that tie out over here? 54696. So now we've tied that out. And we can see basically this adjustment here. Now we might want to put a note on our adjustment. We might like copy this whole formula and say we add a note. So this is going to be new note. So home office. And so we might say this is like the calculation, and we might add what it is, but we can basically see that on the tax form. And then this is going to, I'll put a note here, and I'll say this is a note, new note, reverse expense items related to home office, so we can calculate them using tax form, something like that. So this is just going to reverse those items that were related to the home office, and then I'm going to put those items back on the books, as well as the proportion related to the things that aren't there, what weren't there, including the proportion related to the mortgage and the property taxes in here. And there we have it. So we have that there. So now I'm going to ungreenify this, and this. So I'm going to right click on those and we'll ungreenify those items. So there we have that. And then if I go back on over, we've got once again this 54,696, and that's what our self-employment will be calculated on. So we'll take a look at the self-employment calculation later, but just notice that benefits not only the federal income tax again, but also the self-employment. So we'll continue on with that next time.